Me again, car again. I bit the bullet this morning, bought a new alternator, so that arrives hopefully tomorrow, and I'm going to whip this one out in readiness. So got to get the belt back off and do a couple of things down there. I think one of the tensioners has to come back off, and then disconnect the wiring, unbolt it, and out it should come. So in terms of wiring, there's that multi-plug I've already removed, and I think, what's that, 13mm, something like that. Pretty straightforward, I hope, and then fingers crossed there's enough room for it to come out past all of that lot without having to take the intercooler pipes apart. I might actually do this as a separate video for anyone else who's wanting to swap an alternator on a e61 or e60 530D. If you've been following the other videos, you'll have been watching me incompetently try and diagnose what the hell is wrong with the front of this engine and why it makes a squeal or weird noise. I think it's the alternator, which is why I'm changing it. To change it, I have removed the slam panel off the front of here, taken the rads out, or sorry, the fan out, which is easy. Just lift this thing up after you've taken out 3 screws, disconnect the wiring multi-plug on that side, and the whole lot should lift out after you've unconnected that coolant pipe from the plastic brackets. Then what I'm doing, took the auxiliary belt off with the 24mm socket on the adjuster, just to lever it away to get all the tension off. And then I'm making this up as I go along because I haven't done it, don't have a workshop manual, but I'm guessing that tensioner idler has to come off. So that is about a T50 Torx bit, and what I was explaining in my video the other day is that my Torx bit doesn't fit very nicely and it wants to sort of rotate out when you put a socket on it. So instead I'm using a spanner around the Torx bit, and then I'm using the socket with my other hand to stabilize it. So linked spanners like that, and this hand to actually make sure that that stays perpendicular to the bolt and doesn't round it off. So I'll do that, and you can see how close it was to chewing up and being next to impossible to remove. Now I'm going to get that one off, which is just an Allen key, but I need it out of the way so I can get to the alternator bolt there. Reference, that was a 6, so I guess that's 6mm Allen bolt, easy. On the back of the alternator is just a 13mm nut, so just using the socket to crack that off. Worth pointing out again, disconnect your battery before you do this, because if you accidentally drop that wire and it earths out, you'll be in fireworks mode. Back underneath again, disconnected a, intake pressure sensor off the cold pipe into the inlet, because I don't want to wreck it. That wire is dead spindly and it runs right underneath the alternator, so I'm going to leave that hanging down out of the way. And then you've got the 2 bolts for the alternator itself, Torx bits, one there, one up there where the socket is, and they are E12. Both bolts out, top one, bottom one. Bottom one actually took quite a lot of winding. It's a fair bit of corrosion on it, so I think when I put it back together I'll put some more copperies on it. Well in there. I've pivoted it away from its top mounting, but it's still hanging on at the bottom one, so I'm just rocking it backwards and forwards till it works itself out. Got the alternator released, and now I'm trying to get it through the front and then down that hole. Obviously you've got that pipe and this pipe and some other stuff you don't want to break, so I'm going to go underneath and see if I can get it out without ruining it. I'm taking this photo or video partly for my own benefit, so I can work out how to get the new one back through. Basically it's extremely tight, and that's about the only orientation that I can get it through, so there you go. After my feeble attempts to try and show the noise, which you can hear to the ear, just not on video, started taking the thing apart, took that cover off, took the main bolts out. That's the first indication that something wasn't right. that's like a plastic spacer thing here, and it's got hot enough to melt. So hopefully this is again a clue that it's this that's knackered and causing the problems. I don't think it will come apart anymore without unsoldering things or taking the pulley off the front side, which is probably what you're meant to do. When you grab it, the bearing still doesn't feel bad, which is bothering me somewhat because something's making a noise, and if it ain't the bearing, unless it's a winding catching the case, I don't really know what it is. So I just got to hope that for 170 quid, the new alternator doesn't make a noise, and it was this. But, you know, it could be like a few days ago, I could be thinking I've solved it and yet just spunked a load of money without actually fixing it. We shall see. Well, that's what 170 quid's worth of new alternator looks like. Rather reassuringly, it has the correct number of grooves in the pulley, feels nice and tight, and it looks like it's got the right sort of rear cover on it. So, it's time to put it in the car. I've poked it up and through without stressing this too much. Got it about as far as I can from underneath, so I'm going to go up top and have to rotate it that way, and then push it back in, I think. Or is it the other way? Yeah, so it's that way around. She's in and she's bolted up. Now I've just got to remember to reconnect everything, including that sensor that goes on the boost pipe, which I think is intake pressure or temperature maybe. That's on. And I've got the wiring multi-plug and the main power wires out of the alternator. While that was out of the way, I was actually able to get to the tensioner and double check that I'd done that bolt up tight, which I had, which is good. So I've got to put those on, and then the tensioner's back on the front, put the pulley on, battery in the car, and fire it up and see if that noise is still there. Got that one on, just putting this one on again, and I'll be using my patented technique of 8mm spanner around the Torx bit and then linked spanners to do it up, with my right hand holding this stub to make sure that that stays perpendicular to that bolt, because it is looking seriously second hand now, the number of times I've had that on and off. Right, after a bit of a delay, I've managed to get the battery back in. The delay was caused by the fact the boot lid was locked and the car was powered down, and I couldn't work out how to open it without electrics. So I had to climb through the rear seats with the jump pack, connect that up to the loom just to get it to open. Then I wrestled the battery in. It's damn heavy and that's quite a small space, and there's loads of other wiring there associated with my tow bar electrics. This is the moment of truth. I'm hoping to switch it on and hear no nasty noises, but given how it's gone so far, I'm not holding my breath. Ah, that's a relief. It must have been the alternator. Everything else is running quiet. Relief, much relief. So that's what that noise was all along. If your BMW ever sounds like a hydraulic drive on a bin lorry, then it could be your alternator. Even though the front bearing can feel okay, it can be something internal. Put the finishing touches on. One of them is to replace or refit the alternator, sorry, not alternator, aircon pump belt. This being a later LCI doesn't have a tensioner. These are called stretch belts, and you have to basically walk it on while rotating the crankshaft, and there's no way I'm going to be able to film this while doing it. So I'm just going to get under there, put it on the big one first, then rotate the crank on the Torx bolts and feed this on with a screwdriver. All back together. Now I know it's okay, I'll invest in a new auxiliary belt and aircon belt, but for the moment I'm just putting it back together as is because I need it on the road. I had a brief worry because I found a nut and a screw left over. I thought, where the hell have they come from? But that was off the back of the original alternator. The new one came with that nut, and that came off the new idler, but of course I'd left mine still in the back of the tensioner, so I didn't need that. So job done.